Fantastic. Welcome. Grace is here too.
Hey, Chris.
Everybody knows everybody at GCP
Everyone
Cafe.
knows Chris.
If you don't know Chris, you're doing it wrong. So Chris was our speaker last week at the Helpful Book Club. If you didn't sign up for book club and you still want to be involved, we have a few more events coming this month, and I'd be happy to send you those details. I'll put it in a follow-up email. I have all of your emails because you registered for this event. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So let's get started over here. Tonight, introductions, questions and answers, and then my favorite part, speed networking. So let's have a little fun. I obviously believe that networking is super important to be who you are. And I know most of the jobs that I've gotten have not been through recruiters. They're through people that I know. But I do think there are some do's and don'ts to working with recruiters. And I'm really excited to bring an event to you later this month to talk about some of the myths and some of the assumptions and just make sure that everybody is ready to have a successful search. I know 1 in 5 Americans right now are unemployed. And it's a very difficult time in our country, in the US. And I want to thank you for taking time out to be at this event and understand the power of networking. And if you're watching the replay, thank you for your interest in this topic. I think you can do a lot alone, right? But together we go so far. And I use my network to help me, source great content like this. And I hope that you'll share the message with people. If there's 1 or 2 people that are not here tonight that you think would like to see it, please share the replay. I'll make sure you have a copy of that. Anything you would add, Sheila, about networking?
No, you said it all. There's really nothing else I could add to that. Amen.
I would add that there is a Facebook group. It's called the GCP Cafe group, surprise. So head over there if you're on that platform. We're also on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, all the things. So
you're not on TikTok yet, are you?
No, I'm not going to do it. I actually have a client right now who needs me to work and be of use at work. So I'm not going to do any social media during core business hours. It's purely on the margin. So I love this picture. Actually, Peter, this was 5 years ago. And I thought about giving you your own photo, but then this one, I just like it so much.
No, I like this one. we look so young.
And we're thin. I don't know if you noticed, but
I know.
That was
what happened?
You guys, you're still young and thin. Come on.
So Peter's been moderating events for a while, and I roped him in. There's Lorraine, yay, and Sandra. Oh my gosh, everyone's here. John and Bridget. I roped him into monitoring, it was actually the future of risk-based monitoring. Do you remember? Things were so different 5 years ago. But Peter, do you want to introduce yourself and kind of talk about how you came to be here tonight?
Yeah, well, I came to be here tonight because Nadia said be here, and so here I am. Glad to be here. I'm been in the Bay Area in clinical research in the Bay Area for about 20 years now, and in clinical research in general for over 25 years now, and just glad to be networked. I think just echoing what Nadia was saying before about the importance of networking. It's just so critical. Every job that I've had has also come through networking, and so just making connections whenever possible is key. So glad to be here. Look forward to a great conversation.
Yeah, I'm pumped. But yeah, if you don't know me, I'm Nadia. I'm the founder of GCP Cafe. I network for fun and sport. And it's just something I enjoy. I like collecting clinical researchers from around the world. We're over 7,500 in our group now on Facebook. We get a couple hundred every month joining the group. So if you're someone new and you got this invite tonight, thank you for taking a chance and popping in on something new. There's Kathy, there's Monica. Emily's here. This is incredible. So I definitely want you guys to continue to come to these events. We'll try to do them every other week throughout the summer, keep the momentum going. And I just love connecting clinical researchers. It's something that I'm really, really passionate about. And honestly, I just think there's a better way for us to work together outside of our silos, outside of our immediate employers. And I think we can do it in a safe and confidential way without giving away industry trade secrets. I think we can just have a shared experience. So thank you for believing in that and being here tonight. So that brings us to the main event. Sheila, would you like to introduce yourself to the new GCP Cafe team?
I would love to. Thanks so much. I'm Sheila Mahoney. I'm founder and CEO of LifeSciHub, which is an online resource marketplace for clinical research independent consultants. So the marketplace essentially makes it easier for drug sponsors to find consultants and makes it easier for consultants to find the projects that they need. And I'll say that I myself am an independent consultant. I'm a regulatory operations SME. I have been for the last 6 or 7 years. And I'm here today because with LifeSciHub, because I was driven crazy by the inefficiency of what I found as an independent consultant, and the lack of resources, the lack of support, and how difficult it was, and how the traditional channels of engaging with drug sponsors is so inefficient. And there were other verticals that have this marketplace technology that's very successful, but it has just not happened in life sciences yet. So that's what LifeSciHub is really an adaptation of technology that is very successful in other industries, but has yet to really take hold in life sciences. So yeah.
Sheila, I think what you and I met maybe 2.5 years ago. So I've been able to log in and get registered on the platform. And whenever I'm looking for a new consulting opportunity, this is a place where I can go, oh, look, we have a cutie in the background. Tell her to come to my pool this summer and we'll have some fun.
We'll come hang out.
It's a future clinical researcher right there.
Hi there. So let's get started. I got this quote from Sheila. It was so funny. I don't think she even realized she was going to end up on a slide, but we were talking about, like, what do we want people to walk out of this event and really know and understand? It's about the future. So Sheila, do you want to kind of talk to our conversation and how we got started with the idea for this event?
Sure. So the future of work is, Jack, I'm sorry, I'm very busy right now. Sorry. I got sorry about that. So yes, so the way we got started about this is that Nadia, you and I were talking about consulting and just some of the challenges that there are, some of the decision making about becoming a consultant and whether or not it's right for the individual, and how people struggle with that. And maybe can we talk a little bit about those types of decisions as well. And then the future of work part is talking about the marketplace, and they're predicting that technologies like these will become increasingly common, also increasingly focused in niche industries. And as a matter of fact, I've just recently come in contact with my peer in the space industry that actually has created a marketplace just like LifeSciHub, only for space cadets. Like literally space cadets, engineers and everybody that works in the space industry, and what they need. There's apparently a lot of independent consultants in that industry, and what they need is a connector, something where the hiring entities can find the consultants easier. There's another one for oil rig workers. It's called Rig Up. Apparently all the people that work on oil rigs are independent consultants, and it's very hard for energy companies to find them at the times that they need them. So yeah, they're proliferating all over the place. And they're also predicting that by the time the millennials become the dominant force in the labor pool, these types of technologies will be way more prevalent than they are today.
Well, I'm actually seeing a lot of chatter happening in the chat. So I'm just noticing Lindsay had a little question here, but she's filled it with acronyms, so I'm a little lost. I think she's wanting...
yes, I know what she's saying. Yes. Shall I take that question?
Go for it.
Please translate for us.
Okay. So Lindsay Summers, hello. Very nice to meet you. Thank you for asking such an astute question. So the California just recently passed a law called AB5. If nobody's ever heard of that, it's really meant to target what's happening with Uber drivers and Lyft, and the fact that those companies, they allow people to work full-time hours and beyond for weeks and months and longer, and yet there's no provision for any sort of employment benefits or anything like that. So that is essentially what AB5 is meant to address, and what the intention of the legislation is to get those companies to classify those those contractors as employees, and therefore they're entitled to benefits and so forth. So it was a very broadly written legislation, and unfortunately, there's an awful lot that it covers that is actually very disruptive in a negative way. For example, freelance writers in California are now no longer technically allowed to write about issues in California. They can't write for clients in California because they need to be considered employees. Truckers have a really difficult time with AB5. So essentially what's happening now, and LifeSciHub is actually part of a lobbying group that is passing or attempting to pass additional legislation in Sacramento that is helping to define that and actually create a new classification. Right now, all we have are employees or non-employees. And there's a lot of legislation for the last almost 100 years about employees, but there's absolutely nothing about non-employees. And so this new legislation bill, what this new bill seeks to do is to create a new class, an independent worker classification that's actually written into the law. It has yet to be discussed. We're not really sure what's going to happen, but this is a huge raging debate pretty much everywhere in the U.S. labor market, labor law think tanks, and so forth. It's a bit of a hot topic, if you will.
Yeah, I can share that I personally have been affected by this, Lindsay. I know as someone who was seeking a new consulting position in January, it definitely impacted whether I would go for a 1099 rate versus a W-2 rate. There were certain employers that would not even look at me as a 1099. It was nothing personal. It was just the climate might be wrong for that type of tax set up for them. So for me, I'm kind of flexible to work either way. But it definitely, I think the number of opportunities, I did see a difference based on what I was seeing at the end of 2019 when I was searching. So.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Can I ask, when you're working independently, I mean, I've only worked for a short period during my career as an independent consultant. For the most part, I've been an FTE. But when you're working as an independent consultant, especially these days, are the independent consultants looking for all the benefits that a full-time employee has, or is that something that is really just more being driven by these government regulations, and it's not something that necessarily people want? I mean, because I think the benefit for in my understanding, the benefit being an independent consultant is a lot of flexibility, to be able to come and go quickly from a company. Are you still? It seems like if you're tied into benefits and other things that a full-time employee has, you're looking for a longer-term connection with the company.
Well, yes. I mean, it really depends on the consultant, obviously, and the reasons why they choose to consult, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But there's no question that the labor laws are draconian. They literally haven't been revised in almost 90 years. And so I think everybody agrees that more protections are needed for the independent workforce, better access to benefits, affordable benefits. I'll give you a perfect example. One of the things that LifeSciHub is exploring, and this is not official, but one of my passionate dreams for LifeSciHub is that that we will be able to structure this company in such a way that we can actually create packages or options or something that would allow the consultants that are committed to the platform and derive the majority of their billable hours through projects they find on the platform to have part of LifeSciHub's exit plan. So actually, when we build this valuation and we sell this company 5-10 years down the line, because it's a technology company, that's exactly what's going to happen. Wouldn't it be great if the consultants, who, by the way, have no parent company paying for their training, they have no parent company, they don't have to these things. They have their billable hour and that's it.
Yeah.
It'd be great if they could actually have access to equity of a company like LifeSciHub. Well, guess what? The laws don't support that. I've literally been talking to lawyers all over the country trying to find somebody that will help me write an operating agreement and a legal structure that will actually allow LifeSciHub to put a package together where, we're not going to get into some sort of legal trouble by doing that. The next step is actually to write a something called a no action letter to the SEC. So it's interesting because I'm a regulatory person, and now I'm seeing regulatory in the SEC, which is a different agency. But so we'll see. Airbnb did this about 2 years ago. They tried to give their cards equity. So yeah, we're trying to do things like that. And I'm just going to say we don't have it yet, but that's where we're going, and other benefits for the independent workforce like that.
Yeah, I think just keep pushing the boulder up the hill and try to address disparity, economic or, I just wanted to make sure I talked about a pro for consulting, because I'm not sure, Peter, that you would know this if you haven't been doing it recently. And I could talk pros and cons for an hour easily, which is not what we're going to do tonight because we're talking about the future. But one of the pros for me is the feeling that I can really contribute. And I know that when I go to a client who is saying, I'm so glad you're here, where have you been the last few months? I almost feel like a thrill that I don't necessarily get as an employee. Like a lot of times as an employee, I'm like, oh, let me go to the water cooler and get some tea. And I don't feel like I'm always useful as an employee. But as a consultant, I can honestly say in the last year and a half, things are different because of the work I did for the companies that I worked for. Like I feel a sense of pride having done that work.
Yeah. No, I can see that. I think that's important. And I mean, that's what we live for. We need that it's not just the monetary rewards, it's that internal gratification that you get that drives us. Absolutely. I guess, for me, I mean, they're not pro con, but one of the things that has made it that I've looked for, and one of the reasons I've not gone into consulting as much, is I found in my consulting experiences that I never felt part of the company, fully embraced by the company that I was in. They were glad to have me. They were glad to have the services, but there were, I don't know, internal meetings that I wasn't part of. There were just strategy that I wouldn't be open to, things like that. And so for me, it was more looking for someplace that I could be for a longer period of time and be fully involved in all different aspects of the company. And I think that as a consultant, you don't necessarily always have that connection.
Yeah, it's so hard to mentor and develop others in that consulting role. Like you don't have that authority to really influence the way things are done. So I think it's very personal, the decision. I have to understand that work that I do, I won't receive credit for. And that's okay. The work that I do will be binned and the company will go another direction and they just won't even use it. So I think it's definitely different than being an employee. But for me, like it's been a really great adventure. But what I have noticed is I definitely have my hand tipped, I have my back. I'm definitely not in the room. Things will happen and I'll be informed a week later. And it would have changed my work to know 3 or 5 days earlier. Everyone knew but me, but I'm the odd man out. So I think every employer is different. Every client's different. Violet's asking about consulting. I think a lot of people will do like an 18-month engagement. I know for myself, I specialize in 3 to 6 months. I like to come in, kind of be the CMO whisperer, just to give them exactly what they need, get things set up. I'm really into like creating processes and systems. And then I like to step out and just make things better and a lot of people tell you that takes a year, but for me, I feel like I can come in and make an impact in just a season. And that's kind of how I've chosen to specialize, but it means I'm job searching 4 times a year. Sheila, what would you say about average tenure of a consulting gig?
Yeah, I was just giving that some thought. I would say that usually at least 6 months, maybe longer. 12 months, 18 months is very common. I've seen consulting gigs start at 4 months and then move on, creep to 6 or 7 months. I find that really does the timeline work out exactly as planned. I think that's the one constant, is that the time is probably not going to play out the way you think it's going to.
Yeah, I usually end up month to month. That's a fact. But it is helpful just to kind of plan my work. And so, we make a commitment. And I always say to my client, like, what would this look like if I blew your mind in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? And that's just how I structure my time. But I think for tonight, let's look at some of the things we have on the menu. I always like to make sure that we deliver on our promises. Write in the chat if any of these are really like speaking to you. I've already gotten some audience questions, but something that's on my mind right now is how we communicate at work. And we're talking around it right now, but sometimes as a consultant, the way that we're included in the conversation can be different depending on the employer, and the way that we can influence conversations can be different. I love this idea of talking about marketplace technology, and then I put, I'm doing this backwards. I always start in the middle and work out, by the way. I wrote the talent crisis. I put it in quotes. And Sheila, I thought this might be a kind of a fun place to start our conversation. I hear all the time, like, oh, there's so much work and there's not enough talent. And are we talking around something, or is there actually a real crisis in our industry? What's your perspective?
Well, can I just ask Peter to weigh in on that? Because Peter, you're hiring as well. Why don't you? Do you feel there's a talent crisis?
I guess I'm not exactly sure what the talent crisis would be. I guess for me, I mean, does that mean a lack of available talent? Is that what you're referring to there, or?
Yeah, and I think
what do you mean when you say talent
when
crisis?
I put on the slide, I was thinking maybe we don't actually have a shortage of workforce. We have a shortage of trust, and maybe that's the real problem in our industry, letting people be effective, right?
I mean, I think from my perspective, the industry has changed a lot, and where I see the crisis occurring is that there aren't always the way people do things has not always kept up with how our industry has changed, and that's where the crisis comes from, because people were great at doing what they did before, and they're so great at doing what they did before, but what they did before doesn't necessarily fit with what we need today. And I think that's where the challenge comes in. I don't know about crisis, but we're sort of stuck in that old mindset of how to monitor sites, or how to do risk-based monitoring, or whatever it happens to be. And I think that's where I see the crisis, I guess.
So I would agree with that, and I would say that that's a nice place for consultants to come in, because consultants do go from place to place, and they see a wide variety, as opposed to because you're entirely right. When in an industry that is completely dictated by SOPs, we are trained to do the same thing over and over again, and to not step outside of that box. Like as clinical research professionals, like we're supposed to be following those instructions, and it gets drilled in. But you're right. Then when does there come a time to think differently and try something different? And we're not exactly encouraged to take any chances or take any risks. So it's really hard for organizations to adapt to new ways of working. And so I would completely agree with that. But I also think that is a nice place where consultants really bring in a fresh perspective. Like maybe you don't need the entire department to be doing that immediately, but you certainly can get access to new things very quickly without having to make an investment in a full-time employee.
Yeah, it can be safe.
Yeah, and to your other point about the talent crisis, I would say that I have heard that a lot, that there's a talent crisis. I think it's generally recognized, true, that organizations do struggle to find the people that they need. And I don't think that consulting is the answer for everyone. I don't think that consulting is going to solve that problem completely. I think organizations are always going to have a hard time finding the people that they need. It's the biggest expense that a company has. There is so much dependence on people, and it is a big decision. I think consultants is another tool in the toolbox to get the work done while companies are making these big decisions, like these big, long decisions, but they've got to move fast and they've got to be nimble. Well, get a consultant in here and let's get started, and let's keep that long-term decision going over here, if that makes sense.
I don't want to talk myself out of my next gig, but there is an advantage to having an employee, right, who's super invested in your program and knows all the nuances of your company as well. I know when we're talking about our ultimate stakeholders, not in the cross-functional study team, but our patients, having that continuity of the team sometimes can translate to better care and better options in clinical trials. So if you have a consultant that's coming in and they're like a honeybee and they're just tapping in, they're solving a specific problem and then they're leaving, they may solve that for today, but it may not set you up for success 3 years from now. So I think you have to have that mix of like the task basis plus the strategic to make sure that you're growing your team in the right way to ultimately serve patients. I don't know if you would add to that, Sheila. There can be disadvantages of using an augmented workforce as well if you're not managing them correctly.
Oh, absolutely. And that doesn't serve anybody. I'm just noticing there's some great chats here.
Yeah.
That a lot of you have said consultants have to actually stay fresh with their skills because they have to stay relevant. I mean, if you're a consultant that's doing something that's 15 years out of date, you're not going to get much work.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is that that in this industry, except if you're at the largest companies, and even there, I think it's changed, but certainly at the small and mid-sized companies, we work with people at CROs and at labs and at different service providers that are, it's not, but it's basically we bring a team together. Most companies, especially in the Bay Area, a lot of the smaller companies don't have all the resources in-house, and so we bring people from all different areas to make a team for a project. And then when the project is done, they go off to their separate ways, to their own companies, to other sponsors. So we sort of have that, externally already. I mean, sort of in some ways, this industry is built on that, with the CRO being, sort of consultants to the sponsors.
Yeah. Bridget's just following up on Ramaya's question here. I'd love to take this if that's okay with you. What are some of the ways that consultants stay relevant in terms of training? Whereas Ramaya was saying, I think consultants are likely to engage in continuing education. I would say both of these ladies are correct. And I think it's going to be personal when you're looking at your consultant. You might ask them, like, what are your professional goals in the next year? Are you taking any continuing education classes? I'm a member of ACRP. I'm on the board for the Northern California chapter. I love helping to engage with the volunteers and elevate others. That's something, we have a very active chapter. I love being a part of it. I've worked on the board the volunteer committee for HBA in the past. So there are professional organizations, right? Sheila like, I know that one. I love going to these virtual conferences. I do Twitter chats. I'm constantly reading. I'm just going to go ahead and plug our networking book, Helpful, if anyone is looking for a book on networking. So I think it just depends on the consultant, but it's a really great question when you are growing your team, to say to someone, where are you at? What's the gap? And what are you doing to reconcile that? Because a consultant that comes to you and says, I'm effective, I'm capable, there's no problem with my toolkit, that probably isn't the person that has the right growth mindset for you. So I'm actually a consultant who will come and say, I'm imperfect, I'm curious, I'm always going to ask questions. And that may not be a fit for every client, but it's who I am. So Sheila, what would you add? Do you have any resources on the platform to help consultants become?
Yes, as a matter of fact, so we have on LifeSciHub.com, we have an info page. And what we're trying to do is create like the Huffington Post of affordable networking events. So I get bombarded by emails and webinar, these webinars, those webinars. Not all of them are relevant to consulting. So what we try to do is curate the content that is preferably free, or at least affordable, and that are attractive to consultants, things where they can network or brush up on their skills. So today, for example, we have something up there called TMF Week, and unintended consequence of COVID-19 is that there are a lot of organizations putting their content out for free now. And I have this window of opportunity of great free content. And one organization, great group called Montrium, they're a technology company out of Montreal. They're very proficient with TMF. They decided to put their content all online and make it free. And it's an entire week training for Trial Master File. And it is just an incredible resource. So keep looking at LifeSciHub.com/info. And because we're going to keep posting stuff there. And if anybody has good events for consultants or really for anybody, please shoot them over to me and we'll get them up on the site. But we're hoping to create a resource that consultants can go to and get free training. I want to
Jennifer, would you just pop that in the chat for us, Jennifer? Just type up LifeSciHub.com/info. Yeah. Thanks, Jennifer.
I'm also trying to advocate with different industry groups to see if we can do something with conferences and maybe have a rate to attend conferences that is attractive to independent consultants. Right now we have government or actually educational rate or student rate, and then rate, and then drug sponsor rate. Like I've seen But it's either you're a student and you pay $500 or less, or you're an industry person and you pay $2,000 or $3,000 for the conference.
Yeah.
There should be something that is attractive to independent consultants. So I have made absolutely no progress with that yet. Talking with DIA, they're not really listening just yet. But again, as LifeSciHub grows and we get a bigger and bigger group of independent consultants, hopefully we can get a little weight behind us and maybe start leaning on some of these organizations to give us, that's why together we can do what we can never do alone. Like, there's
tonight.
And that's another reason why LifeSciHub exists, is because when I first became an independent consultant, I knew a couple of people and I asked a couple of questions, but I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't know anything about bookkeeping. I didn't know about incorporation. And frankly, business administration is extremely
so much work.
It's a lot of work, and it's kind of frightening. And I had nowhere to go to ask questions. So we want a community where you have an entire platform full of people who are struggling with the same thing you're struggling with. And it's all business administration and business development and those scary things that have nothing to do with your expertise.
Well, I'm going to give away all my tips tonight. Basically, all my secrets are going to be revealed. If you're an independent consultant and you want to be a part of the conferences, but you don't want to pay thousands of dollars, what I've done with success for the past 5 years is volunteer to be a speaker. And so at this point, I'm a paid speaker. But when I first started speaking, and I do speak at least one conference every year, but I can go to conferences that would normally cost thousands of dollars, but I get access to the whole program just by preparing something I'm really passionate about. So good tip, if you're willing to volunteer or you're willing to be a speaker, you can get access.
I thought you were going to say you go in the fire exit, and that's another way to get in. But
well, you showed me that one time. But I know it's better if you have a pass. I think when you're going in the fire exit, you just don't want to get kicked out and have it end in shame. So, kind of looking at the time, I want to make sure people have about 20 minutes to network. I think we should try to maybe wrap here. But one of the things we want to talk about, Sheila, was your crystal ball. So.
My
your
what?
Crystal ball. Look into the future, right? Yeah. So pull out the magic 8 ball.
Where is
the crystal
ball?
Yeah, and tell me, what do you think is going to happen? And I know you're doing a survey, but is there anything you're expecting to see in your survey when people answer about consulting or hiring consultants?
Okay, so that's a good question. So LifeSciHub is conducting the second annual survey of the independent workforce, and it's two-pronged. There's one prong of questions that's for independent workers, and there's another prong of questions for, thank you. Okay, those are some results from our first annual. The other prong is for hiring entities and people sitting in the heads of departments or procurement that actually are in a position to hire independent consultants. So that opened June 1. Yesterday, actually, we opened the first collector, and that's going to be open until June 30th. And that is lifescihub.com/survey. So if you'd like to take it, it's designed to take 5 minutes. It actually takes 3 minutes, somebody told me. So it's actually a really quick survey. I think what we're going to see is that the number one reason why people become independent consultants is because they value freedom and flexibility above all other considerations. These are a class of people that, for whatever reason, really like choice. And I'm one of those people. I actually have a video on my decision and my journey to become an independent consultant and what was important to me and what's not. And I just, my personal preference is to be able to go from different groups of people and different groups of projects and collect a lot of different experiences along the way. I just discovered that about myself. So freedom is extremely important. I think we're going to find, we're asking two sets of, or
helpful, which is my why.
Helpful. I love it. So on the hiring entity side of the equation, we're going to be looking at, if we get critical mass, what we want to compare are perceptions of the independent workforce within the drug sponsor, depending on the actual head of the department, say the VP of clinical operations, versus HR and procurement. and see if there's any disconnects or dissonance there in terms of working with consultants. Because we find that consultants are like the redheaded stepchildren of the industry. Like, for whatever reason, my personal feeling is that they are a critical tool in the drug development toolbox. You really need these emergency resources, and you can't find a company that doesn't use them. They're not really recognized as valuable. Most companies do not approach the independent workforce strategically. And we're hoping to change that, because we're thinking that there's a lot that can be gained by approaching it strategically as opposed to tactically or even reluctantly, as some companies do.
So Chris was teasing you that he's actually seeing the crystal ball in your cabinet behind you. So. I, of course, have...
There's no crystal ball there, Chris.
Come on, Chris. So I think parting thoughts, Peter, anything we haven't covered, anything that you kind of came in expecting out of this conversation?
No, I think it's been great. I think it's a good discussion. I think, there will always be a place, certainly, for both, I think, the independent consultant and the full-time employees, if you will. I guess, for me, I think what you said before about it being a personal choice as well, and it has to, not everyone is cut out for one or the other, and you have to know yourself, but I think having a resource like Sheila's that can provide support around it, 'cause I think that's so key, is going to be important. The one other thing I was going to say quickly was that I think now, given that with COVID-19 and everyone being at home and working from home, and having family all around you all the time, or everywhere, it sort of changes the landscape of people, consultants being everywhere. And you can have someone working as a consultant remotely, and I think we've shown that remote workers can be just as efficient as everyone being in the office.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, because I'm not in the room for those important meetings with the partners and the board, I might not physically need to be on site, which can save your company money, right? And so we can find a rate that works for both of us. So, and also maybe we don't want everyone in the office as we kind of transition back into a place where we're no longer sheltering in place. So having that consultant means I have, demonstrated that I can work remotely and effectively. And it didn't mean anything to me to go home in March, because I've been working on my own independently for years. So I just got to work. I did have to buy a monitor, but other than that, I was ready to go. And Amazon took care of that. So thank you. That was a blessing. So. For tonight, I didn't want to leave without telling people that we have these events every other week. I think I've been a little bit subtle about it. But we are reading a book right now. It's about networking.
Hold on one second.
I might not have mentioned it, but I'm really, really excited. So we're going to do 2 events next week. Peter is being attacked at this moment. So we'll do a LinkedIn Live, which is our first time doing it. I'll make sure everybody on the list gets an invitation. Please support me. It's something new I haven't tried before. I did a little Facebook Live before I came on tonight too. And then we'll follow that up with a normal Zoom call on the Tuesday. The folks that have already been in the book club have actually been to 2 sessions already. It's like a no rules book club. Basically, you can come and attend even if you don't read the book, but you're going to walk out of it with, Sandra would like a copy of the book. So this book is available on the author's website with a coupon. There's a 5% off for GCP Cafe if you go to heatherhollick.com. Heather has agreed to come and do an Ask Me Anything. For anyone that doesn't know, AMA is Ask Me Anything. So even if you're not in the book club, start putting your questions about networking to me over social media, in the chat, email them, and I will make sure that we have those questions answered by the author at that event. I'm super excited about it. And then this one I just kind of threw in for fun, the myths of working recruiters. I think people have these ideas about how you work with recruiters, and then people can actually make mistakes that you can get in your own way in your job search. I have a really great trusted network of friends that are recruiters, and they're going to come and do some myth busting, and we'll have some hiring managers there too, so it'll be kind of like a Venus and Mars. One thing I was thinking about when you were talking, Sheila, about creating a conference platform for independent consultants is I want to do the opposite. I want to create the unconference platform. So this is where we just self-assemble. So we say, oh, this is on my heart, this is on my mind, I'm going to meet at this date and time, join me. So instead of having speakers on a podium, doing slides and presentations and speaking down and teaching you, I think it's collective learning, and that's the unconference, like a self-assembled. And that's why I really like this platform, because we offer, the opportunity to come and do like breakout rooms and one-on-one networking, and we have 15 minutes left, so we'll definitely do some one-on-one networking. But come be a part of the book club and learn about the unconference, because I think there's a lot of ways to learn from your peers, and you don't always have to learn from an expert, because I have something to learn from everyone I meet. So I've learned a lot tonight. Thank you.
It's been great.
For next steps, everybody go to GCP Cafe, get involved, make sure that you're going to hear about the upcoming events. But for tonight, really what we're asking is take the survey. I mean, it'll take you 3 to 5 minutes. It'll really help Sheila out. I love seeing the infographic in 2019. And I'm curious. Like, I want to see how things change. So if this feels right to you, go to lifesci.hub.com/survey. Thank you, Jennifer, for putting everything in the chat. You're amazing. And take that survey, and this will be available until the 30th of June. And then Sheila, maybe you could follow up with the folks who registered tonight and send them the outcome survey later this summer. So that would be great. So, well, thank you all for joining. Anything we didn't cover, Sheila, from your perspective?
No, I think this was wonderful. Thank you so much for inviting me and giving me the opportunity, and everybody on the chat. It's great. Stick around. Let's do some networking.
I know this is the hard part. Now I have to sort out how to get to networking. So what I would ask everyone to do, just go ahead and leave and look on the left, and there's a one-to-one networking module. I'll come and join you. I'm going to do it. Peter, are you going to stick around for networking?
Yeah. Yeah, unless my hair starts getting brushed again.
My favorite part, everybody who has not done this before, if you are talking to somebody and it's not going well, it's literally going to change in like 45 seconds. So you only get about 90 seconds to chat. But if you're looking for an icebreaker, if you want to talk to someone, but you don't want to say, where are you from? What do you do? Which is like the worst thing you can ask at networking. What we learned by reading the book Helpful is just trying to talk to somebody and say, what were you looking to get out of tonight? How did that go for you? What did you think of the event? Sheila, do you have a good question for people that are networking?
I have a suggestion. Whoever it is you network with tonight, connect with them on LinkedIn and send them a note.
Oh yeah.
Just do it right away, and that way you're always, you're always going to remember where you met that person. Write them a note.
It's so funny when I go through my LinkedIn messages, sometimes things will pop up from like 4 and 5 years ago, and I'll be like, it was so fun meeting you at XYZ event. And I'm like, oh, that's where we met.
Yes, always provide the context, because it's
better than my brain. And you don't always want to ask somebody for something when you're networking. So for tonight, try to just, get to know each other without necessarily try to be helpful. Say, hey, I read something this week that really resonated with me. I'd love to send it to you as a follow-up. Can I help with that? And they'll let you know yes or no. And there's no ask associated. It's just, I want to share.
I have a suggestion. I am part of a thought leadership group, a future of work thought leadership group that meets weekly. And what we do is we have a breakout room, and we have a speed networking, and it's where you talk about being red, yellow, or blue. I'm sorry, red, yellow, or green. You in a green place today? Are you kind of amber, yellow, or are you on high alert? Like, did you have a crazy day today? That could be fun.
I love the suggestion. Well, I'm going to bolt. This will be available on the replay. I can't believe everybody stuck around. This is probably the most well-attended event as far as people staying on the whole time. So I hope you got what you needed. But if you didn't, I'm always looking to improve. So write me back and tell me what you were hoping to get out of tonight that you didn't. And we'll just do another event, because we're doing them every other week. So thank you everyone for coming. And this chat was just off the rails. You guys did a great job. So
awesome chat, guys.
Let's go meet each other. Networking.
Yeah, let's talk.
Thanks. Bye.